Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. Welcome back to STKIPKN PBI SLA. We are from the second group. We'll present the materials for our study today under title The World of Second Language Acquisition. First language versus second language learning. Okay, before we start the presentation, I would like to introduce the member of second group. The members are Dwi Anissa Putri, Dede Sylvia, Ursilna Bunga, and Nadia Azahra. Yep, we are hoping that you can follow this presentation for our discussion later, and we would sure be glad to answer your questions at the end of this presentation. So please hold your questions if you have any. So let's start. Okay everyone, from the first slide you can see on your screen there's the definition of first language. Yep. Acquisition of more than one language during early childhood is possible. It's called simultaneous multilingualism and sequential multilingualism. There is the difference between simultaneous multilingualism and sequential multilingualism. Simultaneous multilingualism is the exposure to two or more language from birth, but sequential multilingualism is when someone acquires the second language after having learned the first language or after first language has already been established. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide about stages of first language acquisition. Okay, please take a look on your screen. There is a stages of first language acquisition. I will explain it starting from 1 month to 4 months. This stage called phoneme perception, at which process the sound they hear in the early months of their lives turns their heads in the direction of sounds. They develop different patterns of crying styles to express different needs. From 4 months to 6 months, babies are develop the ability to articulate velar consonants such as ga and ka, and this stage known as cooing. The third stage is babbling. Babbling takes place between 6 until 8 months. Baby become able to make multi-syllables or combining consonants and vowel such as mama, papa, and they start to produce more complex syllables such as makadapa, kamacaya. And in this stage, child acquires some experience of the social rule of speech between 12 until 16 months. Babies start to produce two words such as mamigo, daddy eat. And as adults, the babies try to know the meaning depends on the context. And yeah, the last stage, when the baby reach 2 years, the stage called telegraphic speech is seen developmentally when a child moves beyond the two-word relational stage of language development and begins to express longer three-word sentences using a finite set of grammatical categories such as nouns, verbs, adjectives, and others. So that is the first language and the stages of first language acquisition. Here now is Dede Cynthia with the next topic. Dede, time is yours.
Hello everyone, here I will explain the topic. It's about factors that affected first language acquisition. The first topic is chronological age. First language acquisition begins at birth. Usually the child will go through the following phase. There is pre-linguistic. This is around 0 until 12 months, and linguistic phase is around 1 year until 3 years. The linguistic phase have some part. The first is phoneme. Phoneme, at this phoneme step, the babies can hear the voice. Babies who can hear become sensitive primarily to sounds in their own language. Babies can scream and can make random sounds. Cooing babies. Cooing. Babies can produce soft vocalization. What it is? This is around 4 months. Babbling. Babbling is babies can say a syllable like ba ba ba, da da da, and this is around 6 months. Yeah. And the next linguistic phase. This phase consists of 3 steps. The first is holoprasis. Holoprasis. In this step, babies can use single or one word like doubt. This is might mean get me drink, give me a drink. Yeah, this pass around 12 months, or we say 1 year. The next is proto sentences. This is around a year and a half of age, like 80 months. Babies can produce two-word sentences, such as what it is, "Mammy go" or "Daddy go." In this phase, the vocabulary starts to grow rapidly. And the last is telegraphic speech. Telegraphic speech, the sentence in this phase increase in length, but small connective words like and, or the are leveled. But they can already understand everyday communication. The next factor is biological factors. Biologically, a child with a healthy condition will quickly learn language or have better language skill. Why? Every child who was born has a natural ability that allows them to use language. There are several parts of the body that determine a child's ability to acquire language, such as a brain, which is the central nervous system, and then hearing sounds like ear, and then speech organs like mouth. If some of these organs are disturbed, then their language acquisition will be late. So, a child with a physical condition, a child with a good physical condition will quickly learn language than a child who have a bad physical condition. The third factor is intelligence. Language and intelligence are two interconnected areas. Language determines intelligence, and intelligence can be enhanced through the use of language. Yeah. Intelligence is the power of ability of children to think or reason. In this case, there is a clear relationship between intelligence and language skills. Children with weak mind will start speaking more slowly than normal children, and normal children will be more slower than intelligent children. Usually, intelligence shows a difference in the long term whether or not a child can begin to speak. The fourth factor is social aspect. Families, especially parents or mothers, have a very important role in the successfully of children in the process of acquiring language. Social aspect include family structures, social groups, and cultural environment that support serious differences in children's language acquisition. The higher the social interaction of a family, the greater the chance for family members to acquire language. On the other hand, lower the level of social interaction in a family, the smaller the opportunity for family members to acquire language. Yeah. So, children who are able to communicate well will be accepted better by social groups and have a better ability to play well who are less able to communicate or are afraid to use it. The last factor is motivation. According to Benson, states that the power of motivation can explain why a normal child successfully learns his mother tongue. There are two sorts of motivation, namely from within and outside the child. A child learns a language because of basic needs, such as when they hungry, when they thirst, and they need attention or affection. This is what is called intrinsic motivation. A motivation will come from someone. For this reason, they need communication with their surroundings. In further development, children feel that language communication makes other people happy because of praise and good responses from their around people. This condition encourages children to learn and master the language better. So, because the child's motivation to learn comes from outside himself, the motivation is called extrinsic motivation. Okay, we are going to the next topic with a second language acquisition. The second language is the language obtained after acquiring the first language or mother tongue. The acquisition of a second language is the process when a person acquires another language after they have mastered to some extent the first language. Usually, second language learning is done by someone for a specific purpose, such as education or work, for example. Usually, someone starts learning a second language while in school, or even during preschool. Why is learning a second or foreign language is necessary? Because the ability to speak a second language or a foreign language not only benefits children as adults, but also have effects their intellectual and social growth. Learning more than one language can improve a person's memory, improve concentration, improve multitasking abilities, and they have better listening skills. When learning a second language, we need more effort because usually the language will be very different both in terms of vocabulary and the structure of language. I think that's all my explanation. Thank you for your attention and see you.
Steps of second language acquisition. Learning a second language involves various steps that language learners experience. My experience learning English as a second language involves positive and negative sentiments. For this reason, second language acquisition steps are important to understand and recognize. Many publications and researchers discuss and reference the steps of second language acquisition as a 7 to 10 years process. For newcomers, second language acquisition is not the only challenge they experience. For instance, English language learners must also learn to navigate a new school, classmates, teachers, and administrators. As a new ESL student, I felt anxious during my first few days of school. I recall being afraid to speak in English during the first week of school. Each time I got to use my native language, I felt some relief. This was because I knew was understood when I got to use my native language. Students learning language experience several steps of language acquisition during the language development process. For this reason, the steps of language acquisition vary and depend on an individual's prior language experience. Research about second language acquisition indicates that language learners benefit from using their native language. For example, the use of native language facilitates second language learning. However, not every language learner is able to use their native language while learning a second language. What influences second language acquisition? There are various factors that influence second language acquisition. For example, educational background and native language proficiency are two important factors to consider. A strong educational foundation allows the learner to cope and acquire another language with ease. This is because they have the experience of learning in academic environment. These kids are able to transfer what they learn during the second language acquisition process. Native language proficiency will also play an important role in language learning. Subsequently, a well-developed first language facilitates learning a second language. This is because child uses their first language learning experience to strategically learn another language. The experience of learning second language may also vary over time. The following steps describe how a person acquires a language. Learning progress through 5 predictable states described below. 1. Pre-production states. At the production stage, a student is not yet able to speak the target language. In other words, this stage is often referred to as the silent period. It is called the silent period because a child is not yet able to use what as or he understands. Although at this stage a learner cannot yet speak, one begins to understand more language slowly. This includes basic words such as hello, come here. He or she may also be able to say simple words. Second, early production stage. Meanwhile, in the early production second language acquisition stage, a child begins to speak using more words and sentences. The student focuses on listening and absorbing the new language. When speaking many language errors may occur. A learner begins to use short sentences such as how are you? Additional as or he may understand short sentence and be able to answer using single words such as fine or good. Okay, 3. Speech emergence stage. At the speech emergency stage, a student has good comprehension. Additionally, a learner can produce simple sentences, use more phrase, and ask questions. Grammatically and pronunciation errors are often made during this stage. The learning English in more conversations but is conscious of their language learning process. Interpreting happens for a less period of time because language become more fluent. However, jokes and idioms are not always understood. 4. Intermediate fluency stage. During the intermediate fluency stage, a learner communicates and writes using more complex sentences. As a result, a student has excellent comprehension skills. In addition, he or she engages in academic learning more independently. In this stage, you'll see fewer grammatical and pronunciation errors. Students are much more comfortable using the language. Additional, less interpreting happens in the brain to communicate and understand. 5. Advanced fluency stage. Once a language learning research advanced fluency, he or she has acquired a near native level of speech. At this moment, a language learner masters academic language. In addition, language use becomes automatic. Although grammatical errors are no longer an issue, pronunciation errors may occur. Thus, pronunciation errors may occur because of an accent. An accent may differ depending on the age that language learning begins. So, the stages of language acquisition are the predictable stages that language learning experience. It is important to keep in mind that parents and teachers play an important role in the language development process. Recognizing and understanding the stages helps facilitate child language experience. One important factor during the process of second language acquisition is a student's awareness of the language development process. This is because person's awareness facilitates and contributes to language growth. Consider sharing the second language acquisition stage with language learning to support their learning experience.
Hello everyone, so now I'm going to explain about what's the difference between what are the difference between L1 learning and L2 learning. So the first one, for L1 or first language, it's by birth. What does it mean? It means that when someone comes to the world, they're constantly get their first language because they get the something called first-hand exposure, or they are actively communicate with their mother or the father, which their mother and their parents are native language for a language that they speak to their children. So after their someone birth, they constantly get their first language without any type of effort to learning a new language like in L2. And because L2 it's by choice, not every person have a second language. Every person have their first language or their native language or a language they use in daily communication process or daily interactions. Not every person have their second language, because to gain or to master it in second language, it requires an effort and time to learn it, to studying it, and to learn grammar, vocabulary, and so on. It's different with L1 that effortless to get mastered on first language. Number two, L1 are acquired automatically without conscious effort, while L2 requires conscious effort and hard work. So, when a baby communicate or when a mother or parents communicate with their child or they, their child is actually learning language with unconscious way. They just listen, they just pay attention to how their mother pronounce a word, and how their father show them a picture or an object and said, this is something, this is a thing, and so on and so forth. They understand, but they cannot say the word. While in L2, it puts hard work. They have someone who wants to master it in second language have to learn how the grammar or vocabulary, how the structure of sentence of that language, and it puts more effort or put more patience to learn and to get mastered on it. Number three, L1 are learned before puberty, typically during infancy, and L2 are learned mostly after puberty or subsequent their first language acquisition. So L1 learned before puberty is about from at the age of 0 until 3 or 4 years old. That's the periods of time that children learns a language, which will become their first language or their native language. And if a child learning or getting input for more than one language before their puberty, it also can be their native language. Or it means that ketika seseorang belajar atau mendapatkan input bahasa lain lebih dari satu bahasa sebelum usia pubertas, sebelum usianya mungkin sekitar 5-6 tahun, itu masih bisa menjadi native language dia, itu masih bisa menjadi suatu bahasa yang dia kategorikan sebagai L1 or first language, because that period of time is more it make a language more permanently in their brain, while in L2 is mostly after puberty, and it learned after you mastered in the first language for educational matters or for job matters and so on and so forth. And number 4, for L1, it get more inputs language from first-hand exposure through listening from mother, older siblings, and so on. While for L2, learning trying to speak and write language from the very first step. It means that when someone get their first language, or when a baby get their first language, they more pay attention to what are they heard, what are they learn. They learn about from sound. They learn from how their parents communicate, or and so on. While in L2, we usually have to write a word, a vocabulary, learn how to pronounce it. It's different with L1. And last but not least, it is for L1, it's completely acquired with 100% proficiency, while for highly advanced L2 learners are often called near native speakers, but they can never match 100% with L1 speakers. So this is the I call it as a natural rules that someone will never get exactly 100% proficiency for their second language. It's different for the native language. Ketika seseorang punya bahasa kedua, itu tidak akan pernah bisa menyamakan sampai 100% dengan ketika dengan penutur asli bahasa yang dia pelajari. Jadi seseorang yang punya native language atau bahasa asli, dia akan mampu menguasai itu secara mendalam, berbeda dengan ketika dia menggunakan second language atau ketika dia punya bahasa kedua. Bahasa kedua tersebut, ketika pun dia sangat kompeten terhadap bahasa tersebut, dia pun hanya bisa disebut sebagai near native speakers. Jadi native speakers yang sangat mendekati dengan aslinya, tapi tidak seperti asli dan bukan penutur aslinya, seperti itu. And then it brings you to the difference between what is the difference between learning and acquiring. Is the main difference is that learning is more conscious and deliberate process, while acquiring is more subconscious in nature. But however, learning and acquisition are both equally significant for anyone who wishes to achieve fluency in a new language. And last but not least, I have beautiful quotes from an American journalist. She said that learning another language is not only learning different words for the same things, but learning another way to think about things. It means that when we are learning another language after our first language, it means that we are open our minds, we open the window for other vision of our that difference from our native language, from our first language, and it richened our knowledge about the world. And so I think that's all for our groups. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to send us questions. And thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Goodbye.